Hi Rio Grande third graders, it's Miss Hanmio and we are going to be taking a look at multiplication using arrays today. So our lesson is going to be following in your books lesson 4-2 on multiplication using arrays. So let's get started. So we want to review what is multiplication. So if you remember from last week, we talked about what multiplication is. It's the combining of equal groups to find a total amount. Now, the word combine means join together or add together. So, when we are using multiplication, we are using equal groups and we want to make sure that we have the same amount in each group so that we can use repeated addition. So, what is multiplication? This is still part of your standard, that is, I can find the product of whole numbers as the total objects. Remember that when we are looking at a multiplication equation, our first number in our equation it's called a factor, and it tells us how many groups there are. Again, we have 4 groups here. We have our multiplication symbol, and our second factor tells us the number in each group. When we think of the multiplication symbol, we should also be thinking about the multiplication symbol as being like groups of. So if we replace the multiplication symbol, we could also replace it with groups of. So I could say 4 groups of 3, which is what is in our picture here to our right. We have 4 groups and there are 3 cookies in each group. So remember that multiplication can be used with repeated addition. But again, our groups have to be right. They have to be equal. Correct. Nice thinking. So our first number in our equation is a factor. We have our multiplication symbol, and our second number is called a factor also. Now, remember, we can replace that multiplication symbol with groups of. So we have 4 groups of 3 here, and you'll notice that when we add our groups, we can add 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. And we add those together to get our 12 total objects. In this case, they were the cookies. Now we're going to take it one step further, but this time we're going to look at multiplication as arrays. So what is an array? An array is a group of objects that have been arranged or set up in rows and columns, and each row has an equal number of objects. So instead of just placing our objects into a group, we are arranging them into a line in this case. So our group is really considered what we call now a row. So we place these objects into rows. So for example, we have our first row and it has 3 objects in it. We have a second row with 3 objects in it, a third row with 3 objects in it, and a fourth row with 3 objects in it. In this case, they're circles. Now, our first factor is going to tell us the number of rows. We also consider a row a group. So number of rows could be still considered the number of groups. Next, we can use our rows of to replace the multiplication symbol. And our second factor is going to still tell us the number of objects in each group, or each row in this case. So there's 3 in the first row, 3 in the second row, 3 in the third row, and 3 in the fourth row. So if we use our multiplication symbol, we can say we have 4 times 3 because we have 4 rows with 3 in each row. 3, 3, 3, and 3, and when we add those together, we're still going to get 12 total objects. So we're going to continue this idea, and we're still going to consider that our first factor tells us our groups. Our second factor is going to tell us our number in each group. Groups of can be used to replace our multiplication symbol, and that tells us that we have 2 in each group. So we have 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, and we're going to add those together to get our 12 total objects. Now, if we take this concept and again relate it to an array, we still have 6, but in this case, we have our factor is telling us how many are in each row. We have our multiplication symbol, which is telling us rows of, and our second factor is telling us how many are in each row. So now we could say we have 6 rows of 2. So we have 6 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and finally our 6th row. Now you'll also notice that in each one of those rows, it has our second factor, which is the number in each row. So we would add 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. And that would still give us our 12 objects. So now we are taking our understanding of groups and taking those groups and placing them into lined rows across. So now that you've had a chance to think about how our repeated addition, our multiplication in groups, and now you have just learned that we can take those groups and put them into rows, but they're still a group, right? So now we're going to practice. So you're going to need your Envision assignment or your Vision book. Your assignment is going to be lesson 4-2, which is going to be on page 102 and 103. And I will also have a link to get you started on this assignment. So watch this video with the link that's attached to this to get you started on your assignment for today, which is multiplication as arrays. Have a great day, Monday morning, and we will see you soon.